It is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce Raquel Welch.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? Great, how nice to see you all.
Raquel, I wonder if you can tell us what inspired you to be an entertainer? Where did it start?
You know, I really wasn't aspiring very much. When I was a kid growing up, I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My father was from Bolivia, which is a country in South America, in case you didn't know. Well, they didn't know too much about where Bolivia was in my father's day. And he came to this country and went to the University of Illinois, where he met my mother. His name was Armando Carlos Tejada, and my mother's name was Josephine Sarah Hall. So it was kind of, you know, two different worlds collided there. And then the war broke out after college, after they graduated college and got married. And he ended up working in San Diego in the aeronautic, whatever you call it, aeronautical engineering, conveyor. Making airplanes and things like that. So when I was growing up there in Southern California, I don't know, I had a kind of feeling like I felt a little like I didn't really belong in any particular sense to one world or the other. I couldn't quite figure out exactly who I was. And I think that as a child, I just liked the idea of escape and living in my imagination. So after a while and seeing a couple of early movies that my dad took me to, it just kind of seemed to me that being in the world of pretend was better than being in the real world. And I kind of evolved into the easiest way to get to the world of pretend was to be an actress. And I started out as actually studying classical ballet when I was 7, and I thought I would be a dancer first, but I then was told by my ballet teacher that I was never going to be a great ballerina, so I sort of thought, okay, well then I'll do some dancing, and then I'll be an actress, and I'll sing too. And so that's how I kind of evolved into becoming what I think of as an entertainer.
What challenges did you find auditioning for those beginning roles, and what were some of the first roles that you had that you can remember?
You know, I have to say I was probably one of the luckiest people on the planet, because I never really did audition for roles in the beginning. When I came here, I was already the mother of 2 small children. I had married my high school sweetheart. What is that little?
It's not ours.
Thing? Oh, it's a cell phone. And let's see, where was I?
So you were telling us about your, you did
Oh yeah, 2 small children. And I got, the first real job I got was as the billboard girl at the Hollywood Palace. So all I really did was walk on the stage. And it turned out that even though I thought I was going to work myself up in a very legitimate way to roles, that this walking out on the stage in a little scanty kind of costume was kind of the thing that got me discovered and noticed and pushed by my agents and things like that. And so I got roles based on the way I looked very, very early on. And I had actually studied theater arts and had a scholarship to the San Diego State College to study theater arts. And so I was a little unnerved by the fact that really I was more about, you know, my figure and the way I looked that people were interested in, instead of a kind of honest approach to acting, and it kind of bothered me. But then that was the way the doors were opening up for me, and I decided not to look a gift horse in the mouth. So one of the first roles that I got really was in Fantastic Voyage, and that was a kind of a strange thing, because I had done this little movie, what was it called? Swingin' Summer, where I was just in a bikini, and it was one of those kind of beach blanket bingo things that you do. and out of that, there had been some pictures that were circulating, and Cubby Broccoli, who is the producer of all the Bond movies, had thought that I would be a good Bond girl. And so he was making a Bond movie with Fox, and they wanted me to be this Bond type of a girl. But the movie wasn't starting right away, and it was kind of a technical thing, so they put me in Fantastic Voyage in order to hold on to the option that they had, you know, of me at 20th Century Fox. I don't know if you could follow that, but that's how I got into Fantastic Voyage, and I didn't do the Bond movie. And then I was in 1,000,000 Years B.C., and then, well, you know what happened.
Did you ever expect them to become these cult classics and that the poster would be still as popular today?
No, I could never guess that that would be what happened. In fact, I thought, you know, this is this really tacky dinosaur movie. And I was saying to Dick Zanuck, you got to be kidding. And he says, it's a classic, darling. It's really a classic. I said, yeah. Like, you know, and he sent me these old movie books, you know, these big thick movie books with all the old pictures of, I think it was Victor Mature and Carol Landis made the first 1,000,000 Years B.C. And I was supposed to see how this was a great film classic, and I didn't see that at all. I thought, oh no. And, but I thought, you know what? No one's going to remember this. And I talked to some of my actor friends, and they said, you know, Steve McQueen made The Blob and nobody, or The Thing or whatever it was, and nobody remembered that. And I said, yeah, that's right. You know, I'll go over, I'll do this thing. Dick Zanuck is, you know, very set on the fact I've got to do it. So I'll do this silly thing, and then I'll get it out of the way, and nobody. And that is exactly what didn't happen, because we were so in such a remote place in the planet. We were on the top of the Canary, on top of Tenerife, which is a island in the Canary Islands off the, was sort of like across the whatever channel from Spain. And we're way up there in this volcanic mountain area with nothing around and no telephone poles or anything. And it was actually snowing. And so there I was in this little tiny thing that they had me wearing, and I was like freezing to death the whole time. It was terrifying. But by the time I got back from this very and I had no dialogue. I thought, this is terrible, because, you know, I have nothing to say. And I thought, you know, it's a damn good thing I'm wearing this little thing I've got on, because otherwise nobody would notice me at all. So, yeah, anyway, when I finally got through filming, I think it was about 10 weeks of, you know, running around between this rock and that rock and imaginary monsters coming over the hill and things. I came back to Heathrow Airport in London, which is it was actually a British film company that I was producing the movie. And when I got off the planes, there was this huge amount of photographers waiting for me. And it turns out that one of the pictures that was taken of me, actually just a production still, out there on the, you know, this volcanic sort of island there, had been published all over and was all over the press, and I had become, you know, while it was snowing, I had become this major it girl. And I was like really shockaroo. I said, wow, what's all this? And I have to say that it was exciting and great and fantastic, and at the same time really terrifying. I thought, wow, what do you do with this? I mean, what do you know, where does it go? What's supposed to happen now? So that's really what happened. So I never imagined, Ilyanne, that I would, you know, that anything would happen from that movie. And of course, you know, that's now the whole thing that defines me forever.
Well, I wouldn't say that. There's a lot of other good bodies of work.
Yeah.
Now, Myra Breckenridge was a very bold choice.
Yes.
To go from there.
And some people say stupid on my part.
Well, were you nervous about this choice? Do you regret it, or have any thoughts because it got such mixed reviews, shall we say?
Well, it got mixed reviews, but the sort of nice irony about the whole thing is now it's become a kind of a cult classic, really. And I think it was, well, just earlier, was it 9 months ago, maybe a year, at LACMA, they did a whole kind of retrospective of different films that I had done, and Myra Breckenridge was one of the films that people felt was a landmark, because in a way it was very much ahead of its time. We were talking about the idea of the changing roles of the sexes, to put it mildly. And Myron, of course, was the male character who really wanted to be a female. And so he had a transsexual operation, and his dream was to become a kind of, female movie star. So I was cast as the female movie star that he wanted to become. And Rex Reed played the male role. And so it was quite controversial, and now I'm happy that I did it. But it was really kind of cuckoo at the time. It was really nutty.
Now, you worked with Mae West and Farrah Fawcett on that film.
Yes, and John Huston, not to forget John.
Not to forget John. But that's really, what was it like working with Mae West? Did you have any impressions?
Well, nobody really works with Mae. Mae works alone. And she lets you know it pretty much right off the bat. And I really was looking forward to meeting her, because I'm one of these people. I'm Virgo, so I'm into the details, and I found out I was going to be working with Mae West, and so I did all this research on her, and I ran old movies of hers and read all the books and everything, and found out that she was really this remarkable talent, and that she had made her first movie at the age of 40. That up until that point, she had been a star on Broadway, where she had pretty much written or almost invented the idea of camp, with the, oh, why don't you come up and meet me sometime? Kind of a thing, and the way she would walk like that, and the whole thing. She was great. So I was really looking forward to meeting her. And she, at that time, when we started Myra Breckenridge, was 77 years old. It would be the first time that she ever made a color movie. And she hadn't made a film in, I think, about 30 some odd years. So this was, I think, for her, now that I'm a little older, I can appreciate it. She was a little nervous about making her appearance in this movie. And the last thing she wanted to do was have, little Miss What's-It girl of the moment, Raquel Welch, come and, say, oh, hi, Miss West, gee, it's so great to meet you. And she's like going, yeah. So, what did you say your name was? So, she was not too thrilled with having to work with me. But we never actually were in the same frame of film in Myra Breckenridge. Somehow she maneuvered it around where there was never a two-shot. So, but there's, I could probably do the whole thing on Mae West and Myra Breckenridge, but I think we ought to move on.
Well, let's move on to the Three Musketeers. That was kind of a departure for you, and you were brilliantly funny in that movie, and you won a Golden Globe for it.
Yeah.
What made you read for that part, and because it was a little bit different than
You know
the other
what? I
roles?
wish I could say I read. I didn't. I'm really. It's only recently that I've had to read for anything. Really, honestly, I never really. As I say, I was a very, very fortunate little camper, because I got. It's true. I got my stardom and my fame on the basis of my good looks. And, sometimes I felt kind of illegitimate because of that reason, but people didn't ask for me to read, and they didn't ask for me to audition. So which one was that one? Oh, Three Musketeers. I was called, and I was told that Dick Lester was making this movie, and that it was going to be a big slapstick comedy, and I thought, the Three Musketeers is a slapstick comedy? How does that happen? And so then I thought, So I went out and I looked at all of Dick's films, and I saw that he was really a good director and a really good comedy director. And so I called him on the phone, and I said to him, Dick, I really would love to work with you, but I'm a little confused. The last Three Musketeers I saw, it was like Lana Turner and June Allison and Gene Kelly. Can you believe doing the Three Musketeers? But anyway, that was what I remember from my childhood. And I said, shouldn't I be playing the Lana Turner part? I don't see myself in the June Allison role. And he said, no, you've got it all wrong. So anyway, I was to play Madame Bonacieux. And it was really an important film for me because it was the first time that I knew that I was funny. I had friends of mine who would say, you're funny, you're funny, and laugh at me, and we would laugh together at things. But I had never done really a full-out comedy part before, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But he was a great director for me because when I first started out in the business, I always used to think, oh, a director, ooh, great, he's going to help. He's going to talk to me and sort of nurture me along and help me through the role, and it'll all be so great because he'll have the answers. And of course, that never happened. And I thought, oh, I see. So the director really doesn't direct you. You have to direct yourself. Oh, I see. So that was like scary. Because I had done some theater as a kid growing up and in high school, and I had majored in theater arts, but the camera is a different kind of an animal, and I wasn't really sure how to deal with it. But Dick was a great director for me because what he did was he didn't talk at me too much and tell me too many things to do to confuse me, and he didn't ignore me and figure that I was going to do it all on my own. He just set up this wonderful atmosphere, like we were all there and we were going to have a great fun time being funny, and that we were not going to try to be funny, and we were not going to indicate that this is funny now, guys, hello, joke. We were just going to, kind of do a kind of silent screen kind of an approach where we were going to go through these kind of slapstick moves, but not telegraph it. In other words, not let anybody know it was coming. And so I asked him, why does she fall down? I don't know if any of you have seen this movie, the Dick Lester, Three Musketeers, but that's why I won the Golden Globe Award. Because my character always fell down, and she fell down steps. She, everything happened to her. She fell down, she bumped into things, she got her skirt caught in the door, she'd trip over this, and all the time things happened. She was a klutz. And so anyway, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Going on too long.
No, not at all.
So anyway, but I said to him, why does she fall down? Is she myopic, like she just doesn't see? And he said, there is no reason. And now that sounds like a bad director, right? But I thought, there is no reason. And he said, no, there really isn't any reason. It's just stuff that happens to her. And I said, so she doesn't see it coming? And he said, no, she hasn't got a clue that this is about to happen. I said, oh, I see. He says, well, think Buster Keaton. And I thought, Buster Keaton? I mean, that's like a really weird kind of dour character for me to think of. So I went to bed. I could hardly sleep that night, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, I started walking around. I thought, Buster Keaton, I can't do Buster Keaton. It was like... And I thought, oh, I know who I could be. I could be Stan Laurel. Because Stan Laurel never saw it coming either. And he had this kind of innocent quality about him where it was just a little off. Just a little late. And I thought, that's what I'll do. I'll do him. And so I was so happy because then after that I knew exactly what he wanted from me. But it was kind of neat that he just sort of made me do the thinking and he didn't have to tell me the whole thing. So it would really be, if you're actors, he would really be mine, and it would be something that came from me, that fit me, that made me feel comfortable, and I didn't have to adopt his idea. And we had such a great time on the set. Everybody adored him. We had so much fun doing it. And then it turned out to be this great fun experience. And my friends and agents and managers and everything were calling me when the movie came out and saying, you got to go down and hear these people laugh. You're hysterical. And I'd say, no, really? They said, yeah, you got to. So I'd go down to Westwood and stand in the back of the movie theater and see if anybody laughed, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, this is cool.
You were very funny. Now, you've worked with a lot of award-winning directors. I mean,
A few.
Quite
Not
a
as
few.
many as I'd like.
Does each one approach the same way as Richard Lester? Or do you find that you have to adapt your style, or do you have to? How do you find working with other directors like Gary Marshall, Blake Edwards, Herb Ross?
I think that the thing that I learned is that the director really is the director. He's like the captain of the ship, and you have to find a way, even if you think he's kind of maybe not your fave, maybe not your favorite person on the planet, you have to kind of find a way to really think he's great and to think that he's really got a lot on the ball and he's got everything that he says is interesting and important to you. Because in the very beginning I had a lot of directors, I think that because of the fact that I was a girl from 1 million years B.C. that didn't really expect me to do anything anyway. They didn't expect much of me. And when you feel that kind of a vibe coming from the director, it kind of undercuts your confidence. And so I would have a hard time in some of the earlier movies that I undertook. I felt, I wasn't in the groove, in the zone, so to speak. And then I thought, you know what, this is, I have to figure out a way to, really sort of hang on their every word and really make it fun for myself to find out what it is they want and all of that. And then it started to get easier because some directors are great and they're fun guys and great to be around, and others are real grumpy and kind of misogynistic and hate women and all kinds of weird things. But, I've had a lot of great experiences, and I've worked with a lot of very talented people, and I feel very fortunate that I've been able to work under the guise of certain directors and find out different things that don't come from me that help me make a better movie.
So Max and our audience want to know if you had a favorite director or for one particular director that stood out for a particular experience.
Oh, what, she got tired? No. Oh, male, female, So, favorite director. I always loved Dick because Dick Lester was a lot of fun. He was just so much fun. Oh gosh, I try to remember my movies. I wish I had my bio with me so I could remember them all.
That's okay. What about people you've worked with?
Peter Yates was great. I love Peter Yates. He did Mother Jugs and Speed with me. And that was with Bill Cosby and Harvey Keitel and Larry Hagman, and over at Fox. And he was a love. He was a doll. I enjoyed making that movie. I loved making Last of Sheila. Herb Ross was a fine director, and also I loved working with Diane Cannon because she was a hoot, and she has that great laugh. And also on that movie was Dick Benjamin and the late Joan Hackett. God bless her. She was a wonderful, wonderful actress. And then there was Jimmy Coburn, who was amazing. And you know who played my husband in Last of Sheila was Ian McShane from Deadwood. I mean, didn't I believe that? I mean, he was like a young pup then, and we were like this hot couple, and not in real life, but and suddenly I turn on my tube last year, and I'm going, what? What am I seeing? That's Ian? Wow, I didn't know he was like that. So I'm thrilled for his success in this new series. It's great. So let me see, what else? What other favorite movies? Oh, Kansas City Bomber was a lot of fun to do. And that, what else was there?
Let's move on. In Kansas City Bomber, how did you prepare for that? Did you roller skate already? Did you have to learn?
No.
Did they have somebody else? I mean, because that was you, so.
Well, it wasn't all me, thank God. That was hard. That was really hard. And actually, I did have to learn how to skate, especially I knew how to roller skate from being a kid. Everyone roller skates, but on a bank track, it's a whole different thing because, you know, when you go around the curves, it sort of comes up to a 45-degree angle. And it's very hard to keep your footing. You have to do this crossover step. And it was very tough, and I did fall down, but just before production started, and broke my wrist. Yeah, and it was really too bad, because I broke it during a photo shoot. They had sent somebody out to shoot pictures. Yeah, I know, isn't that crummy? And the good news was that they were shooting a cover story for Life magazine, and they sent this photographer out there. And he asked me to turn this way up on the track, and I turned and I slipped and fell and broke my wrist. So we had to push the movie back. And Jim Aubrey was the head of the studio then at MGM. And you know, I was worried they'd cancel the whole movie. I was just so worried. Because this was the first movie that my production company actually produced. I found the script, and it was from a young writer who is a screenwriting major at UCLA by the name of Barry Sandler. And I had found this script, and so I took it to the studio. And it was the first time I had played something that really wasn't completely the sort of Raquel Welch sex symbol kind of a mode. Oh, and Jodie Foster was my daughter in that. So whatever she was, like 8 years old. She was something. She was amazing. You know, this little tiny kid, and she was like, I thought, wow, what is going on here? She's something. And then, of course, later she became Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver and all that, and I just thought, I cannot believe it. Look at this. You know, you just knew the first minute you laid eyes on her that she was just really had this presence that was very unique. So.
And now you've always had a singing career.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
I don't even
Well, yeah, you did. Yeah.
Sort of. Okay.
Yeah. You started singing when you were young, you said.
Yeah, I always, I always sang, and then I did a lot of vocal training to sing popular songs. And when I was growing up, I've sort of interrupted your question.
No, go ahead.
When I was growing up, I thought, as I said to you before, sort of the way my, if you could call it talent, developed, I sort of became, I thought of myself as a kind of a musical comedy kind of a person, like Betty Grable, Rita Hayworth, Marilyn Monroe. You didn't have to really sing like Barbra Streisand or Judy Garland, but you sang and you danced. You didn't have to be a prima ballerina or Sid Charisse, but you danced. And you did light comedy, and that's the kind of person I thought I would be in the movies. And then, of course, when I came here, they were not making musicals anymore. They just sort of stopped in the 50s. They didn't make any more musicals. So I was like really disappointed. I didn't know what, I thought, you know, I don't know what they're going to do with me. Because you know, this was not, when I came along in the 60s, it was not the perfect age, when I say age, era to be a sex symbol. Because this was the time when it was women's lib, and they were saying, you know, I was a sex object, and, you know, I was exploiting myself. And all of this, and I was feeling like, ooh, you know, this is why I'm successful, and this is why they pay me to kind of do this kind of role, and this is the way I'm typecast, and now I'm getting flack from the women, so it was a little uncomfortable sometimes for me.
You were doing television also at the time. You were doing working with Bob Hope and variety shows, and
Not really.
Doing a little bit of that. No,
I don't recall that. Oh well, you know what? I did go to with the USO. Yeah. I went to Vietnam with the Bob Hope USO tour and entertained the troops there. And I guess there was a special. You know, but that was before the real special that I did. I did a couple of TV specials, but so we entertained the troops in Vietnam, and we went to the hospital ships and all of this thing, and these wonderful young guys who were barely shaving were these soldiers, and they were like so thrilled to see people from home. It made them feel like they hadn't been forgotten, and that everyone wasn't against them, because when the morale is so important to these kids when they're over there. They're really young men, and they have to get to be men real quick. But it was very touching and very moving to be part of that and to be performing in front of those kind of audiences. It really was, you know, it kind of broke my heart, and it still does to this day. But Bob was a great role model for somebody who was really, you know, a guy who came from vaudeville, and his job was to entertain, whether he was walking up to a young man in a hospital bed and giving him ball scores and signing a photograph and smiling and bringing good cheer, or whether he was on the stage cracking a joke or doing a soft shoe, and that was a great experience. And then I did this, when you say television, I did, I think it was in 1970-ish, I did a TV special, actually. Even back then, they were doing these Coca-Cola TV specials of people who were stars and things, and I did one for Coca-Cola, and it was called Really Raquel, and I covered a lot of different songs and did dances and stuff like that, and Tom Jones was on it, and I think, John Wayne was in it, and Bob Hope also, and I covered the Mamas and Papas California Dreamin'. I did the all kinds of different songs. We did Rocky Raccoon, you know, that old with Bob Hope in this bar, and I played a Mae West type part before I met her, and yeah, something like her name was McGill, but she called herself Lil. And I had this get up like Mae West. And I don't know, there was a lot of fun things in it. Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, we did that one, and did a lot of different songs on that. And then later on, 1980, I did a second television special. When I say television special, they were musical specials. And so lots of times when people say, you know, that I sing and dance, people go, huh? Like when? Well, I never did have a recording career, but I did sing and dance, and then the show that I did in the 80s, From Raquel with Love, we went to New York and shot it, and when that came out on ABC television, it was very instrumental in getting me my chance, my break on Broadway, because the producers of the show saw it. The choreographer of the show, Tony Sharmely, was also the choreographer of a hit musical by Cantor and Ebb on Broadway called Woman of the Year. And so when they were looking for someone to replace Lauren Bacall, you know, they said, well, what about Raquel Welch? And so I got a chance to star on Broadway, and that was like a lifelong dream of mine, because if you can imagine that when I was 7, I was dreaming of being a kind of, you know, musical comedy star. This was my first chance to do that, and I was just, it was like a dream come true. I was really excited about that, and still am.
So you filled on Broadway. Not only did you step up for Lauren Bacall, but you also filled in after Julie Andrews for Victor Victoria.
Yeah, that was many years later. This is 1988 or, no, that's too late. 97 maybe, I filled in for Julie. So that's a while ago now. In Victor Victoria, well, I figured I did Myra Breckenridge. Now I could just, you know, let the hay, you know. But it was kind of funny because, like, I'm the farthest thing from Julie Andrews that ever walked. And, you know, I was thinking, what? Are they kidding me? What was it? Are people nuts? But, you know, we changed some of the songs and things, and I did this male role. I did it more like Elvis Presley than the way she did it, which is kind of more British, of course. And so I had fun with it, and I love playing Broadway, and I love doing musicals, and well, I'd like to do more Broadway, actually. I'd like to do more theater and just do comedy. I don't think I need to be in a musical all the time, because that's really tough, the 8 shows a week with the singing and dancing. It's really, really physically exhausting, really. Very, very taxing.
Is the acting itself different if you're on stage or on television or in the films?
Well, I do think it is a lot different. Well, if you're doing a sitcom, that's different too, because you have the live audience and you're playing comedy in the broadest sense of the word, so the timing for the laughs and everything is critical. And then working in film is, the camera is right there, providing you have dialogue. And for years I didn't have much. Then I finally, a lot of people thought I was going to disappear overnight anyway, so I had to really, really struggle and everything to try to broaden my opportunities and keep going in my career. And I'm glad to say that I was able to survive and go through, as many different kinds of roles as I have, and enjoyed every single minute of it. But now I lost my train of thought.
That's Bedazzled. You work with Dudley Moore.
Yes, I work with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, and the most important person, and then he would be another one of my favorite directors was Stanley Donen, because Stanley was, of course, a master. He did all these wonderful musicals, yes, of course, and he was directing this, and then he did a lot of Audrey Hepburn's movies and Cary Grant's movies, and later on, and he was just wonderful and charming and classy and everything that you'd want him to be. And he directed that, so we had a lot of fun, but it was really just kind of a cameo role. I mean, you may realize now that, of course, they remade that with Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, and I thought they both did a great job, and I thought she was fabulous and great, really wonderful. But I didn't think that I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, I just didn't think the movie worked as well, because it got kind of too big, too sort of overblown, and it didn't have the charm of the smaller film, which was really about, somebody making a Faustian deal with each one of the deadly sins. It's more fun, I think, the original. But I did think that Elizabeth Hurley was really hot. I thought she was great.
Is it strange, though, seeing another actor in a role that you created or put your brand on?
Well, I never felt really possessive of anything. They've done a lot of these different, like Cave Girl movies. They make one, it seems like every other year they make a new Cave Girl movie. And I never feel like I own any of that. I mean, I think everything's been done before. And I feel like I was inspired by actresses and personalities that came before me. And some of them you would never even imagine that I would like, but, I still was inspired by them. And so if somebody was inspired by something that I did, that's fine.
Now, you've also made some very interesting career choices for portraying an American Indian in The Legend of Walks Far Woman and a dying woman in Right to Die. Oh, sorry. Portraying an American Indian, I mean, how did that come about? Was that a
That was a conscious
choice,
choice,
won a lot of
actually.
awards for it as well.
What did I win? I've forgotten what I won on that one. Maybe I got nominated, I don't remember. I had thought that it would be interesting to do television. It was my first television movie. If I could do something that was different and help me make a departure away from the glamour thing. And I've given that up now, but back then I was still harboring the idea that maybe I could make this transition. And so I picked something that was really different. And it was a book called The Legend of Walks Far Woman. And it was kind of the history of the Blackfoot Sioux in the Big Sky territory of Montana and the Indians who had survived the Battle of Little Bighorn, what led up to it and what came in its aftermath. And so I was, I was hoping to do something that had, some kind of special poignancy about American history and about Native Americans and indigenous people. It was supposed to be a mini-series, and then they cut quite a lot of things out of it. So I didn't think it was totally satisfying for me, but I was glad that it got a really good rating. I think it got a 36 share, which I was thrilled with. But part of that was because I was on the cover of Life magazine, because I had just been on Broadway in Woman of the Year, and somehow the success of my Broadway debut paved the way. You know how it gets. I mean, the press loves you when you're hot, and then they don't care about you when you're not. And so they cared about me a lot then. And so it just sort of worked really well. Grant Tinker was the head of NBC, and he put the movie out, and it got a great share. And it was a project very close to my heart because I had found it and all of that. And, but I was not 100% happy, I have to just say, with the way it turned out. They kind of got to the point where they're ripping pages out of the script just to hurry up and do it. And I felt like, oh, that was like a rude awakening to the trials and tribulations of developing material and then finding out what happens to it when you actually go to put it on film.
And for Right to Die, how do you even prepare for a role like that?
Well, that was a role I did prepare a lot for. I didn't have to audition, though. Actually, would you believe they actually called me? It was Karen Danaher had called me, and she said to me, this would be a big departure for you because you'd be playing a woman who is dying, and she's dying of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is popularly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and it paralyzes you. And it's a pretty devastating disease. And I thought, oh, I see. Oh, so it's going to be a big dramatic role. And I thought, that might be just fine for me. I would really like to do that. And I had been on Broadway, and I hadn't, been back and done a lot of things in Hollywood since that time. I'd chosen to live in New York for 10 years, and I came back and I took on this role. And that's the one I really, well, not the only one, but I did do a lot of research on that. I went into the hospitals, I visited people, I went to their homes, people who had Lou Gehrig's disease. And then I decided that if I was going to play a woman who was stricken with this disease, that I would not work out. I'm a big workout person. I work out every day of my life, and I watch my diet, and I do all that stuff. And I said, you can't do that because then, you're very Raquel Welchy when you do that, and this is not that kind of a role. So I stopped doing the exercise, and I stopped putting on makeup. And I was spending time with these people, and I saw how they had a hard time swallowing and speaking and moving at all. And they hadn't talk like that, and then their hands would all shrivel up. And it was really very heartbreaking to watch them deteriorate, these people. And they were all very brave and very wonderful people, and you could see the human spirit was an amazing thing. And it convinced me that when you die, you really do have a spirit that doesn't die with you when you die physically. But I decided that in order to understand what that was like, that I would have to lie down on the floor with nobody around and see if I couldn't move, and I couldn't really speak very well, and I couldn't reach out, what it would be like to have to get up and go to the bathroom, get up and do something. And that feeling of helplessness, that feeling of, that you are completely helpless and abandoned, and that you cannot do for yourself, was a thing that that sense of loss of the physical, of life, little by little, in small increments, that I used for the role. And because I didn't have to do a lot of makeup, and I didn't have to worry about wardrobe or camera angles or anything like that, that when you play glamour roles, it seems like you have to think about some of that stuff, or at least it's part of the requirement of the whole process. It was so easy. I thought, oh my God, this is relaxing. This is easy stuff. Not really easy. I didn't mean to make light of it, but it was a lot less, of a concern. And I started to, I fell in love with the idea that I was really involved in a character that wasn't me. But at the same time, I thought back to whoever it was that said, you know, that comedy is hard. And I think that that's the truth. I think comedy is hard. That's the hard work. It's like ditch digging. It requires a lot of work. So why I chose that, I don't know, but that's sort of been my lot in life, to be more of a comedian.
And then you went on to make films such like as Tortilla Soup, which I think, maybe I'm wrong, but for me, as someone who's followed your career, it was really the first time that I realized you had Latino roots. And then you went on to make, of course, American Family as well, which was a critically acclaimed series. But I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about Tortilla Soup, and was that a conscientious decision to kind of be part of Gregory Nava's cast in that way?
No, Gregory invited me into the cast of American Family. It ended up on PBS. It was actually done for CBS, but it ended up on PBS for a lot of political reasons I won't go into. But anyway, unfortunately, we didn't have as big an audience. But it was a wonderful, wonderful project. And Gregory's a very talented director. And I have to say, he's one of the people I've enjoyed most working with. And he called me up because he's from San Diego. And me, I grew up in San Diego, as I told you, and from the time I was about 2 years old. And I had gone to La Jolla High School, and then I had won some beauty contests when I was a teenager. And he had lived in the same area, and he said that he always wanted to call me up and ask me to be in one of his projects once he became a director. So he did. And because he felt like I was a hometown girl, and at that time in San Diego, I was Raquel Tejada. And my first husband's name was Welch. I have 2 children with him, so I became Raquel Welch. And that's a name that I kept for my kids. And also because, quite frankly, when I came here, they didn't even like the fact that my name was Raquel. They wanted to change it to Debbie. And I thought, I don't know. I don't feel like a Debbie. I kind of, really got... I thought, boy, this is just so awful. And so I kind of fought to keep my name. I said, no, they said, but it's so hard, nobody will learn to pronounce it, they won't remember it. And I said, well, okay, we'll just see about that. And I sort of made me, just psychologically, I just felt like, all right, that was a kind of challenge to me. So, I kind of played the game. I did play Latino roles. I played a Yaqui Indian, which is a Mexican Indian. In 100 Rifles, I played a Latino in Bandolero with Jimmy Stewart and Dean Martin. And then I did choose this American Indian role, but I think it was, and then later on, now we have a kind of, there's this wonderful thing that happened. There's so many Mexicanos coming over the border that the demographic of the Latin community is such that the politicians and the marketing experts want to appeal to the Latin audience now. So it's okay, suddenly. And so these movies of recent years that I've been involved in are part of that. It really had nothing to do with me specifically, but that more of those films were being made and television projects, and little by little. And as we know, there's so many big stars that are Latin. Of course, famous Jennifer Lopez springs to mind, but Andy Garcia and Benicio del Toro and Antonio Banderas and Penelope Cruz and Salma Hayek and so many that now it's a kind of different topography out there. It's kind of cool to be Latina. So it's welcome. And of course, all the Latin community did recognize that my name, Raquel, was Latin name. And for the rest of the folk out there, they didn't know what kind of name that is, whatever. Raquel Welch, the girl in the fur bikini. So.
Yeah, but your character on An American Family was very different also.
Yes, that was more like a real life person. I know a lot of the parts that I played in movies were kind of not so much real life people, in a way. I mean, even in Three Musketeers, I was 15th century, Madame Bonacieux, she's French, really. So with the big period costumes and all that, and even Wild Party, it was in the 20s, so I was always something different than I was, and certainly I was not, the girl from 1,000,000 Years B.C., that was another thing, and Lillian Lust, and from Bedazzled, and all that. Now suddenly I was playing Aunt Dora in American Family, and she was just a regular person who just happened to be living in an American family from the barrio in East LA, and in Boyle Heights, and it was a really, wonderful, different change for me to just act natural. So I really enjoyed it, and Gregory was great because he wrote a wonderful script for me where I got to sing. I didn't even ask him. He said, "Oh, I know that you sing, and I've seen you on Broadway, and we'll put a song in here for you." So it was great, and it was a lovely story. And Maria Canals played my daughter in it, and it was a kind of a thing where we had a little problem between the mother and the daughter, as often happens in real life. So it was a wonderful role for me. I really enjoyed that challenge from Gregory.
Is it different working with an ensemble cast in a series versus a film where you're together for for months at a time, perhaps on a film, but in a series maybe it's a little, is there any difference with working with people?
I think that the series work. We were in the hour-long format, in case you didn't know. It's a drama. It's more like working in theater because you play the same character each time out, so you don't have to change your character. And they just get you a wardrobe that you can wear every week, so you don't have to constantly do fittings and crazy things like that. And you really feel like you're a part of a family, and everybody gets so on the same wavelength that you really can improvise during the course of the scenes and not step on anybody's toes. And we had Edward James Olmos, we had Sonia Braga, we even had the famous Rita Moreno, who's so great, and Isai Morales, and Constance Marie, who's in the George Lopez show, played, I think, one of my nieces, and Rachel Tickerton, who's a wonderful actress. And we had Austin Marquez played the little boy. And we had a great time. It was just so friendly and easy because we all knew one another. And I think that's the most fun. To play that same character, to play your same character over and over again with the same people, it's like, it becomes so much more easy. And I think the acting gets really very natural that way too. People are familiar, you're not having to pretend to be familiar with people who you're not familiar with. And you don't have a case of nerves because you know everybody and all their ins and outs. And I really enjoyed it, it's great. Love to do it again.
Do you approach roles differently now than you did when you were earlier in your career?
Oh, I'm sure I do. Well, I didn't really approach 1,000,000 Years B.C. I remember going to the director one day and I'd say, I have this idea. And he went, oh. He said, you must, he says, American actors. And I said, well, I thought that maybe, he said, please, don't think. So you see that rock over there? That is rock A. This is rock B. When I call action, you start at rock A. You run. When you get in the middle, he said, you look up, there's a giant turtle coming over the hill. Scream. Okay. And then you run to rock B. Have you got that? I said, oh, I see. Okay. So I thought, oh, here we go. This is what it's going to be like, And I thought, well, this is just for one movie. But, then once you become that thing called a sex symbol, then that's a whole... Okay. It's like gum on your shoe. You can't get rid of it.
So now you're able to take roles like Spin City where you're kind of doing a spoof almost on yourself.
Well, yeah, in a way,
In a way.
Yeah.
But is that more comfort?
Well, it was it was
just
just like sort of, in Spin City I played Richard Kind's mother. So that was like, whatever, joke casting, because obviously, you know, Richard and I don't look like we're related. And he's so funny, and he's such a great guy. And of course, Michael J. is incredible, and all the other people were wonderful, and director, producer, everybody. And so we had some fun with that. And I was hoping, you know, that maybe it would you know, it would work into something where I could be a regular on the show. But as we all know, Michael was suffering from Parkinson's disease, and he was covering it up so amazingly that you would never know. And here this poor man was suffering terribly and so worried and trying to hang on so that the show wouldn't go down. And God bless him. He's a very, very courageous guy and just so generous, and you would never know. I mean, there was never a moment of complaint or anything like that. But then that was not to be. But I did do, they did invite me back when Charlie Sheen and Heather Locklear took over the Spin City thing here in LA, because they were shooting it in New York. And I love New York because I just love New York. But I love here too. And so I did Spin City on the East Coast and the West Coast too. But I would love to do a TV series, a sitcom or something. It'd be fun.
You mentioned you had a production company. Do you produce?
Who doesn't?
Do you find that that's the best way to get projects? If you
You know, I don't know if it's the best way. It seems to be that everybody has to try to put together projects that their dream projects, or the projects that they think would be interesting for them to play a role in. And for me, sometimes it's a role that I might like to play, or sometimes I get to the point where I just think, well, this could be a good project. I wouldn't mind even if I wasn't in it. I'd like to see it get done even if somebody else was in it. And so I think it's, you know, it's our creative juices, all actors and actresses. We know something about the business because really, in the end, that camera is on us, and we have to carry the tale and tell the story. And so we get to learn after a while what it's all about and all the things that make up movie making. And so I think it's a natural flow that would happen. I still think it would have been, I would have liked to have been around in a different time in motion picture history. And because I remember sitting next to Betty Davis one time at a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was me, Betty Davis, and Burt Reynolds. And we had a really interesting conversation with Betty. And of course she had the cigarette. And I said to her, "Oh, Miss Davis, you know, you are an idol for all of the actresses in my generation. I mean, we would give our left to have the fraction of the brilliance that you had in all of your movies. I mean, there were so many of these miraculous performances." And she said, "Yes. And it'll never happen again." And I thought, you know, she's right. And then she explained to us that in her day, that she used to fight cats and dogs with the producers over at Warner Brothers for the right roles and the right directors, and why the script didn't go this way and more of that and less of this, and all this, you know, constant kind of battling or maneuvering to get the best possible opportunities for her movies. But she said then it was worth fighting for. She said now you get yourself a production company, right? And then it takes you 4 years, maybe more, to put together a project. Where is your continuity with the public, you know? It's gone by the time you get your project put together. And that is a difficulty, because she came from a time when there was the studio system, and the studio system used to have people on staff that would make and fashion projects for Betty Davis, for Joan Crawford, for whoever it was, Clark Gable, Cary Cooper, and later on, for Marilyn Monroe and for the big stars. They were there to make a project for the stars. Now it's not like that. Now you have to somehow be a chameleon, like the famous and wonderful Meryl Streep, who can change each time because she can be anybody and fit different projects that come along, and that's what makes her career so great. I'm not that kind of an actress. I admire her greatly, but I also know my own self, and that's not who I am, and that's not what I have to offer. So I think I would have fared better in a different part of filmmaking history.
Now, along with all of this, you were also really the forerunner in the field of health and fitness. I mean, I remember your book came out.
You really want to go there?
Well, I'm just curious because did you find that you needed to have that, or was that something that you really wanted to do, or did you think that did you want to have another creative outlet?
No. You know, when you're an actress, as you all know your body, yourself, your physical self is your instrument. So if you're not doing exercise or fencing classes or some kind of a sport or something, you're not doing your job. It's that simple, I think. So I always, I started classical ballet when I was 7, and then I went on and took different kinds of dance. I took jazz and I took flamenco and all kinds of different movement. But in the end, I ended up with yoga, which I found was the best of all possible worlds for tuning in the mind and body together so that your mind is clear, you're in a relaxed state, and that you're breaking through a lot of emotional blocks and old memories, inhibitions, insecurities, fears, anxieties, all of those things. And you're tuning up your entire instrument. So you've got flexibility, strength, balance, concentration, patience, all these different elements. And I found that when I fell into the yoga, that it was a gift to me, and I started to become a better artist, and I've felt like I was more comfortable in my skin. And this is what I did for myself, and I was lucky to find it through a friend of mine, and actually in Las Vegas of all places. I did some of those nightclub shows in Las Vegas around the time of the late Elvis Presley, when he was not the early Elvis Presley, but the other one with the sideburns, and he was a little chubbier and had more jewelry. And so I was there, and I had backup singers, of course, and one of my backup singers said to me, "You really going to do that ankle weight stuff before every show?" And I said, "Well, it's, I have to have some exercise, I have to do." And she said, "No, you've got this stuff, that's not interesting, that's, what you..." And so she said, "When we get back to LA, you have to come to yoga class with me." I said, "Oh, no, I'm not going to yoga." No. I said, "First of all, incense makes me sneeze. And I don't like any of that kind of out kind of stuff. It's not for me. I don't really." And she said, "Nah, you don't know what you're talking about. Come with me." So she took me to a yoga class, and I was like, before I was halfway through it, I was just amazed at, what I was feeling and what was happening. And it wasn't like an outer body experience or anything. It wasn't like anything mystical. It was like, wow, hello. Well, this is great. This is where it's happened. This is where what it's all about. This is where it should all begin. I wish I had discovered it when I was 7, when I was doing classical ballet. I might have been a ballerina, proper ballerina if I had. Anyhow, so that's how I had it as part of my life. And then we had this big fitness craze. It started in the early 80s. And early on, I'm sure you all remember, Jane Fonda came out with her Feel the Burn Jane Fonda workout book. And so then they, of course, asked me would I like to come up with my workout book, because that's, because of the body and all that, They said, "So, how do you keep your thing going and that? How do you keep your body in such great shape?" And so I said, "Oh, okay, well, if you really want to know, it's yoga." And they said, "Oh." And I said, "Well, no, that's what I really do. I do yoga." And they said, "Well, can't you do the leg raises?" And I said, No, I can't do the leg raises. "Well, can't you do the feel burn?" I said, "No, I can't. I really can't, because I don't do that. How can I write a book or do that about something I don't know anything about?" I said, I will do the book on yoga. And so it was sort of like my name, "Why don't we call you Debbie?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." And so it was the same thing. Well, why can't we do, the feel the burn, aerobic thing? And I said, no, I don't think so. And so I did the yoga book, and it was a huge success, and it was translated in lots of different languages all around the world. And now, of course, yoga is hip and happening, and everybody's doing it. Madonna.
You're ahead of your time.
And so I feel like good, I was right.
So, but while we're on this beauty and fitness, and you're doing a book, right now you have a company, you have a line of cosmetics, and you have a wig.
No, well, I don't do cosmetics. No, I do skincare.
Skincare, sorry.
And I have a wig collection. This, however, is not one. But I do a wig collection, and it's wonderful. I really enjoy it because I get to take part in all the designs of it, and the way it's cut and everything. I'm really very much a part of the creative end of it. And I do wear wigs myself because I wear them for different roles that I play. And they came to me exactly at the time when I was in Victor Victoria, in which I was wearing wigs. And because I wore wigs on the stage, when I came out the stage door, there would be all these people waiting for me to come out, as they do on Broadway, to sign autographs and all these fans. And I had to look nice, and I didn't want to set my hair, so I wore wigs. We're wearing wigs all the time. And somebody realized this and said to me, would you like to put out a wig line, a line of wigs? And I said, yes, I would love to. So I've been doing that this will be the 7th year. And it's very successful. And we've just decided this last year to donate $1 million worth of wigs to the American Cancer Society. And it's really very, very rewarding because women who have had chemotherapy or some kind of cancer treatment and are the survivors of those treatments have gone through a real hell with losing their hair and their morale and their self-esteem along with it. And the fact that they can get a beautiful, stylish wig by Raquel Welch, puts a smile on their face. So that's something that has been a real bonus out of this whole enterprise.
Do you think that celebrities, owe the public or that they really should use, their name for charities and because you see so many celebrities attached to charities?
Well, I know that Bill O'Reilly doesn't think so, but I do think that it's a good thing. You have this celebrity, and most of us somewhere in the back of our minds, even though we work really hard and having a career and trying to sustain a career once we've got it, and that it isn't, a real easy road sometimes. We're all so very fortunate, and we're so much celebrated and treated well if we have success that we really do need to give back somehow. And if showing up at somebody, at some charity event and pointing the finger at a cause or reminding people that we too are thinking about people who are less fortunate than ourselves and people who need help and people who are suffering and need our care, attention, our money, our support, I think that that's a good thing. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'd rather see people use their time that way than, well, lots of the way they use it. So.
But I'm just curious because you have self-described yourself here as a sex symbol, and you were known for your body and your image. Did you have any trouble with people taking you seriously when you went to these serious issues that you were advocating?
No, they didn't. Well, I don't think so. They didn't take me seriously as an actress in the beginning. They said, well, what, she's got no dialogue, can she speak? And it was fun because there was that poster, and the women really didn't like me all that much. They were like really having a good time pulling me down. And they thought, and just a body, just a face. She'll be so over in 6 months. And good riddance. And so, I had that kind of skepticism to work against in my career. And in the beginning, it did kind of hurt my feelings and make me feel self-conscious. But I had to get over that because I just felt like you can't always ask people to love you for the reasons you want to be loved. I mean, even if you're not an actress, we know that story. People expect you to do things or like you for reasons that you think, why? That's not the reason I would like you to respond to me, but this is just reality. So I got realistic and I just have fun with it now.
Looking back now, are there any parts that you regret turning down in your career?
Let me see. Only one that I really felt I should have, that I really feel I made a mistake about. I turned down some roles that I think I did the right thing for me. But there was this script that came into my house, and it was called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And I thought, well, why would anyone want to see me play this woman in this sort of, and she, doesn't have any money, and she doesn't have any, and she's got this daughter or these kids, and I thought, I don't know, I can't see myself doing this role. And I was so wrong. If I would have taken that role, and if I would have put my concentration on it, like I did in later years, that role I think got Ellen Burstyn a Academy Award nomination, or did she win? She won. Yeah. Well, you see. So, yeah, more guts than brains.
Well, but conversely, is there anything that you're really glad that you turned down?
I think I'll leave that alone.
Oh, okay. The shape of women, the actresses nowadays, they're clearly not your shape. They're not what you. I mean, to me, they're pretty flat and
Well, there's some of them out there.
Well, very, very penciled.
They got the whole kit.
So, do you see that? I mean, do you see the change? Do you think that there's
Well, there
been
are a lot
way
of
women are
really,
recognized?
really, really thin girls, I must say. But I was very thin too back then.
Yeah. Well, you're thin now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not thin now. But, back then, I don't know what I was, a size 2 or 4 or something. And I had very slender hips, tiny little waist and everything. And then I had, the full crowd in the balcony. So that was a kind of showstopper. And so the whole kit together was, quite a cause for attention. And but I think there's a lot of, look at Jessica Simpson seems to have a lot of curves, doesn't she? Yeah. And there's a few people out there. There's a lot of taller girls, I think. I think they suddenly got very, very tall. So what they've got doesn't look as much as it is because it's spread out, There's so much to, And but it seems like there's a lot of tall girls like Nicole Kidman and the wonderful Cameron Diaz and who else? Gwyneth Paltrow, yes, and the gorgeous Charlize Theron, and see all these girls who are absolutely gorgeous and breathtakingly beautiful. They all do those ugly roles so that they can be considered real actresses. And I only did one of those, I think, and that was The Right to Die.
Now, your daughter is an actress.
Yes.
Did you encourage her to go into acting, or?
Were we going to take?
I have questions that we're going to move right into questions from people in 2 minutes. I just wanted to ask in terms of your daughter.
Oh, I didn't. I did encourage her. I thought I would encourage her to be an actress. But, she always told me she didn't want to be one. But then, how daughters are. They don't like to tell their mothers what they're really thinking. And if you're the mother and you're a famous mother for being an actress and then you want to talk to your daughter about it, they don't want to listen to you. Well, at least that's what I had happen to me. So I could give her lots of advice, but she wasn't interested in my advice. So I don't really have too much to do with her career. She really pursued it on her own, and pretty much gotten her breaks in Cocoon, which was her famous movie that she did many years back, and she could have sort of parlayed that into, I think, a major career, but she was not as ambitious as I was, and you know, she sort of went, okay, so fine, you know.
Bonnie wants.
But
Well, lucky for us, she made that decision.
I think it's very unlucky. She's so beautiful and she's such a great girl, but she's just not really, like I was really bound and determined I was going to, you know, have a career, and it meant everything to me. And I would inconvenience myself no end in order to have a career. You know, I came to this town with 2 small children in tow, no money, I didn't know anybody, and I was lucky enough to be able to, as they call it, break into the business. And I took a lot of sort of hits on the way up, because it was rocky to come up, you know, in the way that I did. But, you know, I was willing to stay in it for the long haul and go through all the uncomfortable parts and the difficult parts. And you have to really want that, because it's not, you know, it's not always user-friendly, this lovely business of ours.
Both Bonnie and Monica were wondering, what is the biggest challenge or decision you've had to make in your career?
The biggest challenge I've ever had to make, oh my. I never understand, never know how to do the best or the biggest. I think coming here really with my 2 small children in the very beginning, and I really didn't know anybody here, and I really didn't have any background in film, and just with a kind of dream and not even a car, and taking a shot at it was probably one of the most difficult and tough decisions I ever made. And I was pretty scared underneath the surface most of the time. I'm pretty anxious and worried to do that and come here with the two babies, because one was like in what they called then an infant seat, and the other in a stroller. So I was really in a pretty vulnerable situation. But I was lucky. I made it, and you know, everything worked out okay.
Patty was wondering on the ageism. You know, the statistics at SAG show that women over 40, I mean, their careers just go down. But you've been managing to sustain really quite a career, you know, well over.
Well,
and she was wondering,
they say that, but you know, it is a terrible big struggle, and I think that it's really a terrible loss. Now, you would imagine I would say that, because I've been around so long, since 1 million years B.C. But the truth of the matter is, I do think that just when you get to be around 40, everything kicks in so that you could really be a really first-class actress. And because of the fitness revolution and my generation of women and how we have, you know, come along, you know, a woman looks good at 40. Damn good at 40. I mean, look at Terry Hatcher. You know, Terry Hatcher and all these beautiful actresses nowadays. And, you know, they're just about chopped off the roster at the age of 40. And I just think this is a real crime. I do, because women and men are so viable, and more so after 40 than ever before. And their lives are more interesting, and they're going to be better actresses and everything else. It's not that we shouldn't be interested in the young folk as well, and the beautiful young people, the sexy young girls, and the, you know, hunky guys. But we should have a full menu of, you know, movies, I think, and television fare out there, so that people can really see life as it really is. It's not just about from the age of 19 to 29. It isn't about just that. I mean, that's just the awkward period. You look good, you know nothing. And you don't feel, you know, quite like you've got your footing. I mean, very rare cases anybody has anything really together in those very young years. It's like almost by the grace of God that you do anything worthwhile.
Scott was wondering if you could talk about some of your favorite leading men and what you took away from them.
Oh, what I took away from them. Oh, I liked most all of my leading men, actually. They were all great. And I always felt that that was one of the fun parts. Because, well, you know, I'm a woman and I'm interested in attractive men. And I just had a lot of fun. Well, let me see here. Where shall I begin? Oh, there were just so many people that I always had wanted to meet in my life, and I had a big admiration for, like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Jimmy Stewart. I mean, those are people like when I was growing up, I was like, you know, they were so great. And I thought, when I got to be in movies with them, I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I must be doing something right in this world to be working with Jimmy Stewart and one of the all-time greatest actors ever on film. And he was such a nice guy, and you learned so much from him because he was a very down-home kind of you know, he seemed to be very relaxed and very kind of regular guy, but he was very concentrated all the time. And he had this very strong professional ethic about him. And one day we were leaving the set, and there were all these people that had paid money to come and look at us as, you know, and to visit the set as we were leaving. And they all wanted autographs, and I ran into my trailer and shut the door. And Jimmy came and knocked on the trailer door and went, oh, Raquel. And I said, yeah? He said, come on out here, Raquel. We'll have to have a little talk. And I said, yeah, hi, okay. So hi. And he said, you see those people out there? They're the ones that buy the tickets. And so he said, come on with me. And I suddenly thought, oh, I'm being told that this is the way to behave, you know, that you just, you know, maybe it's not your favorite thing to do, and you're tired, and that's what goes with it. And I thought, okay, well, if Jimmy Stewart says it, it must be true then, you know. And I just, you know, pulled up my socks and said, you know, he's got to be right. This is part of it. You get all these other things, and if people want to, you know, wait and they want to pay their money for their tickets and see, you know, what movie making is all about and see the stars, well, then you owe it to them to stay around a little bit and sign a few autographs and do it with a smile and be gracious. So that was something. And then Frank Sinatra was, we did this awful movie called Lady in Cement. It was really not very wonderful, but he was great. He was amazing. He did. You know, they say that Frank would never do more than one take. Well, he was always perfect on the first take. So that was the thing about Frank. Maybe he wasn't always that way, I don't know, but he was like perfect on the first take. He had great instincts, and he was playing the Fontainebleau every night, and I would go every night and watch him because I just could not believe, you know, what a great opportunity it was to see Frank Sinatra every day for weeks on end, you know, just walk on the stage and be absolutely brilliant and have all these people eating out of his hand. And Dean Martin was great. Richard Burton was amazing. A wonderful flirt. Richard Burton was a very naughty flirt. And he used to drive Elizabeth nuts. You know, he really did, because he would... I think they had this little kind of competition that they would flirt with other people around each other to make each other jealous and things. And it was like really quite something. Let me see, who else? Robert Culp in Hanny Calder. He was great and fun. And Burt Reynolds, I did 4 movies with Burt Reynolds. In fact, we just did a movie last year called Forget About It. And I hope that's not what happens to it. But anyway, he's terrific. He's just dynamite. He's a lot of fun. He's got great charm. I think he's a wonderful actor and comedian. And, you know, I always have a great time with Burt. Gosh, I know I'm leaving out tons of people. I can't even think now, but that's a few.
Who would you want to work with now, if you could have
Jack Nicholson. Yeah, I think it's about time he worked. Well, he started to work with girls his own age, women his own age. And I was so much younger than him anyway. But I'm still too old to share the camera with him, I guess. But I love that movie he did with Diane Keaton because, you know, she was amazing. And it was just nice to see him in that situation. Well, I'd love to work with Clint Eastwood. I would love to work with Clint. And, well, I did that Hanny Calder movie. I don't know if you ever saw it, but I always thought of it as a kind of female Clint Eastwood. And a way to kind of do this kind of independent female action, Western action heroine. And that was the idea behind that. So,
what is next? You've done it all, it seems.
Well, I haven't really done it all.
But you've done
the best I could.
What kind of projects would you want to look for at this stage? Now that you're, I mean, it seems
well, I have. Of course, I've got my projects I've developed. Yes, I have. I'm developing a television series, a comedy sitcom idea, and I'm also developing a feature-length film. Excuse me. You know, we'll see what we shall see. And there's always something around the corner. So I'd like to do some more theater.
And Ellen's asking, what's your perception when people think of you? How would you like them to think of you as an actor, singer, dancer, comedian, or just all of it?
You know, I got humble in my middle age, and I just don't really, you know, however anybody wants to think of me, as long as it's clean, is okay by me.
And then we'll take one last question. What kind of advice would you give to someone starting out now, or what kind of advice would you give to people who are starting out projects?
You know, I really think I'm a poor person to give advice. All I can do is tell about my experiences and my impressions of things. Because everybody's experience is really so personal and unique. But I have to say that if you want to be, well, I don't know, is anybody here starting out? Okay, starting out. Is that a girl or a boy? Can't see that, but the lights in my eye. Restarting. Yeah, restarting. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, that's good. It's never too late. It's just absolutely never too late. And you know, every year it's proven that you know, if you believe in yourself, and if you stay optimistic, and if you stay innocent in a way that you enjoy your life, and you enjoy those unknown opportunities and those unknowns just around the corner, that, you know, something could happen that's extraordinary, and you could do a wonderful role that you would be remembered for decades and time to come. I think that if you're starting out as a young person in this business and you're a woman, I would not do it if you have 2 kids, because I think it's just too hard. And I think it's just, you know, you just carry the weight of your children and what's happening to them all the time when you're not with them around. And I think that Kate Hepburn got it right. You know, you're married to your career, or you decide that you're going to be married and raise children. And then when you get finished with that part of it, then you can, you know, you can pursue your career with full concentration, and nobody gets shortchanged.
Okay. Are there any other questions from our audience? We have a few more minutes. This gentleman over here.
Have you, in your long career, did you have any experience with the casting couch syndrome, and how did you personally react to that?
I ran around the desk, down the hall. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was ridiculous, you know. I mean, women talk about sexual harassment. There was no such thing called sexual harassment in my day. And believe me, before my day, it must have been going on like crazy. And it was just one of those things. You just kind of, you just knew that it's kind of interesting, because I do think I remember when I was about 13 and the early stages of my physical development, and I would start to notice that men in particular would pay attention a little bit too much in the wrong way at a very young age. And I think that every woman in her heart of hearts knows that it's different when you're a woman and you're a girl and you have this thing to deal with. And, you know, sometimes not every guy is a bad guy, mind you. And we all flirt a little bit. But I found that men in positions of power, especially casting people or producers or even stars, directors, they would like to push, you know, to see if they could, you know, get extra favors because they were in a position where they could get you a job, or they could say, no, not her, this one over there. And it was just really kind of frightening, because you really did have to stay nimble on your feet. You didn't have to run.
Over here in the yellow.
Would you think about doing a video or book on fitness again? I mean, you know, even, I know it's been a while. I remember.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was like the 80s, so it's like 25 years ago.
Yeah, I remember you were at Family Fitness working on some, it was a gym on Pico, and you were working on some kind of movement there. This is in the 80s, so if I don't, is that what you did?
Oh, you mean the commercial I did for Bally's?
Is that what it was?
Well, there was a commercial I did for Bally's Fitness, yeah, but that wasn't my gym.
But would you consider doing
Commercial.
Would you do another book, or?
You know, I thought about doing another book for women of a certain age, you know, and how yoga can, you know, help keep you looking great and physically rejuvenate you and keep you mentally, you know, at top peak and all of that. I've thought about that. Yeah, I would consider it.
Do you have an autobiography?
I'm working on an autobiography, actually, yeah.
Right here? Yes. Did you have a question over here?
I just wanted to wave to you.
Oh, well, hi.
Hey, you never get your chance again.
Do I need to run? No, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned Nicole Kidman
Yeah.
and Charlize Theron kind of like bubbling up to
Yeah.
achieve
Yeah.
their
Well, they're
roles.
both wonderful
Would you
actors.
go ahead and do that for a part?
I would, and I did, but nobody cared. Well, it wasn't a movie, so I did get a nomination, a Golden Globe nomination for Right to Die, but I didn't, you know, I didn't win. That's okay, you know, I wanted to do it for myself. I think a lot of us, you know, do things, you know, we're in our careers because we like what we do. We're not, nobody twists our arm to do it. But yeah, I would do it. I would do it, but you know what? Something rankles me about the fact that you would have to do it or you get an award for putting on a fake nose. I mean, you know, why? I liked her fine in other things that she did, and I still think that the Academy, oh, I hope I'm not going to step on anybody's toes here, but I think the Academy ought to take an example of the fact that I don't think we can really judge comedies against dramas and musicals against the others. Because, you know, they even had to give Cary Grant a consolation prize, you know, when he was almost stopped making movies, because they don't have a category for comedy. Come on, you know, some of our... Marilyn Monroe would have had lots of awards for comedy if they were giving comedy awards. She would have had to feel like she was, not welcome in the artistic community if they would have given awards for comedy. Why not? Now, they did actually acknowledge, I think it happened one night with Claudette Colbert and Gable, yeah. And that was a wonderfully funny movie and everything. And now they did, but it's not fair to take, you know, the $1 Million Baby and put it opposite. Sideways. Thank you. Yeah, because I thought they were both great in completely different ways, and I would have liked to have seen, you know, more acknowledgement of that. And then, you know, you have Martin Scorsese with this huge big epic, which is, again, a whole different genre. I don't know how to get around it, but I think we ought to really try harder to be more truthful with these nominations and not try to fit square pegs into round holes. I think it's...
Lady here in the blue? Yeah.
Raquel, on the way over here tonight, I was on the phone with my son Mark, and I told him that I was coming here to hear conversations with Raquel Welch. He says, Mom, please, if you get the chance, tell her that I had her poster when I was 17 years old on my wall from 1 Million B.C. and tell her I would love to have her autograph.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very sweet. That's very flattering. I appreciate that very much. You see that girl from 1 Million Years B.C.? That was a great job, wasn't it, after all?
Great. We have time just for a couple more. How about the gentleman right here?
Thank you. I wondered, Miss Welch, if you could just speak briefly on early in your career, what was your inspiration, and not even necessarily anything related to the industry, but what inspired you? What drove you early in your career?
You mean what made me want to be an actress? Or no?
Just what gave you the spark to just really, really pursue it?
You know, I didn't really think I was pretty when I was growing up because I had seen all these movies and all the girls that I saw that were considered beautiful, or I thought they were all blondes. So I didn't really think of myself as being beautiful. And I got that from reactions, you know, when as I say, when I started to, you know, get into puberty, I started getting reactions from people, and I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. Maybe it's okay, actually, you know. And so you know, I just think I had that drive. Maybe it came from my father, because I think that when you come to this country as an immigrant and you want to be American and it's your dream, he came here to study aeronautics and space, and I think he had this kind of drive and vision, and I think something about his character got into my head. And so I found a vision, something that made me happy, something that I could aspire to, and it was to be an actress and to, you know, escape reality, as I said before, and to be outside the norm and be able to express myself. I felt like when I was a kid, I didn't get to say too much about what I wanted. I don't want to go into all the details of my childhood, but as a child growing up, I didn't have a real voice in it.
Well,
and
you
so
certainly gave me the answer I expected you to, but I just wanted the audience to hear it for themselves, because that's, you know, and I applaud you for giving the acknowledgement to the parents.
Oh yes, I think it is a lot in your parents. And I've looked at other actors and things. I mean, even Tom Cruise now, who's so much in the public eye. And who I like, actually, because I remember seeing him in Risky Business, and I went with my daughter, and we thought he reminded me of my son Damon so much. We both went, Damon, you know. And but he, I found, when I read about him, his father was not present, and his mother sacrificed a lot to, you know, give him what she could and to make sure that he was able to pursue his dreams. And I think that his mother doing that for him, and the feeling that he was striving to look for, you know, an acceptance because his father wasn't there, I think that probably drove him. I'm only, you know, don't even, I mean, I know him to say hello, but I don't know him really. But I think that there's a story like that behind most actors, quite a few of them, or you find that they've traveled constantly, and they felt like the odd man out, that they were strangers, and it was hard all the time to feel accepted. And so it builds a funny kind of little insecurity in a way, And then you compensate for it by wanting to, go out and be, express yourself in front of people and verify that you're, that you have something to say and that you are received well.
In the back there? Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Raquel. The Lakers obviously are not in the scene anymore, but I was wondering if you watched the game last night, and if you are glad.
You mean the Spurs?
Yeah, I've seen you at Laker games before.
Yeah.
And what do you think of Phil Jackson coming back?
Well, but didn't they say he's not coming?
He is.
Oh, he is coming.
He's coming.
Oh, okay, well, I missed a couple of days, and those things change. Well, I think Phil is great because I think he's a great psychologist, and maybe he can make a team again out of the Lakers because they're all not together, are they? At all. Well, no, it's not the Lakers anymore. But I do think that it might be a pipe dream because I think that combination of all those guys together, Horry and Fisher and Fox and Shaq and Kobe but it was like they were all so amazing. I mean, it was an amazing conglomeration of talent, and I think you had a couple of stars that kind of thought they were the whole banana, and they really weren't.
How about the question over there in the corner? Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. Great talk tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh.
What's the name of your production company?
Raquel Welch Productions. I was going to call it something sort of more racy, but I decided against it.
Right here in the front.
I got a two-parter. One of your first speaking roles, wasn't it in like a roustabout with Elvis Presley?
Well, I'm afraid it wasn't speaking, but I was in Roustabout with Elvis Presley.
Okay.
Yes.
And how was it working with the Muppets?
What, aren't you going to ask about Elvis? Who cares about the Muppets? This piggy was exactly like Mae West. When we were finished with our duet, she just turned at me and said, "Get rid of her." But Elvis was like, I was like so gaga I was going to work with Elvis because I remembered when I was 13 or 14 seeing him live in San Diego. And, that was, I thought, oh, that's what sex is all about. Now I get it. I was not too sure, but I thought, oh, I get it now. And so it was like, from then on, my life was like before Elvis or after Elvis, Everything was about Elvis. So I was really stoked that I got a very tiny little part in, what was it called? Roustabout. And I got to actually be near him. But by that time, he wasn't the Elvis, the early Elvis that I loved. And but it was a thrill. And then when I was working Vegas, he worked at the International Hilton Hotel where I worked too. So I felt like I'd really arrived. That it was Elvis and me at the Hilton.
One more, and right there in the back.
You mentioned your experiences with Marcello Mastroianni.
Oh, Marcello, yes, I forgot to tell you about him. He was so wonderful, he was so handsome. And he was such a wonderful actor. But the thing about Marcello is he slept all the time. Really, in between takes, he was always sleeping. It was like, and you'd come over and you'd say, "Marcello," and he'd go, "Ciao, si." And I was just like, what is going on here? It's really kind of disappointing. But he's this really wonderful, mellow guy. And of course, I had admired him when, from the time I was much younger in those movies with Sophia Loren. So for me to be able to be in a movie with Marcello Mastroianni, it was, like I thought I had arrived and died and gone to heaven.
Well, thank you so much for being
Well,
with
thank
here
you very
tonight.
much
This
for
has been a
inviting me.
great evening. Thank you so much.